Hello students, welcome to PRS Biology. Today we are going to discuss NCERT chapter number 1 Biology, that is Reproduction in Organism for class 12. So each and every organism can live only for a certain period of time. The period from birth to the natural death of an organism represents its lifespan. So what do you mean by lifespan? Lifespan is exactly the time period that starts from the birth to the natural death. And within this period, the organism have to complete its all life activities. So this time period represents the lifespan of that particular organism. Here you can see the lifespan of different organisms ranges from 1 to 2 weeks and up to 100 to 150 years or more. So depending on the type of organism, the lifespan may vary. Here you can see the parrot has lifespan of 140 years and butterfly complete their life cycle within a week. Here you can see the lifespan of some organisms. Elephant has lifespan of 60 to 70 years, rose 35 years, dog 15 years, butterfly 1 to 2 weeks, crow 15 years, banana tree 2 to 4 years, cow 20 to 25 years, parrot 140 years, crocodile 60 years, horse 30 years, fruit fly 30 days, rice plant 3 to 7 months, tortoise 100 to 150 years, the great banyan tree 400 years, sparrow 5 years. Next topic is reproduction. What do you mean by reproduction? Reproduction is defined as a biological process in which an organism gives rise to young ones similar to itself. So reproduction is an unique process and living organisms perform reproduction. Why they perform reproduction? Because they want to multiply their number. They want to multiply their offspring. Through the reproduction, they continue their species generation after generation. So you can say reproduction is entirely a biological process in which an organism gives rise to young one similar to itself. The offspring grow, mature, and in turn produces new offspring. Thus, there is a cycle of birth, growth, and death. So, within the living organism, birth, growth, and death completes the entire life cycle. There is a large diversity in the biological world, and each organism has evolved its own mechanism to multiply and produce offspring. So, there are different types of reproduction according to the diversity of the biological world. And reproduction can be divided into two types, asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. When offspring is produced by a single parent with or without the involvement of gametic formation and fusion, the reproduction is called asexual. And when two parents of opposite sex participate in the reproductive process, then it is called the sexual reproduction. So you can say sexual reproduction is biparental reproduction and asexual reproduction is monoparental reproduction. Asexual reproduction can take place by different mechanisms, this including cell division. It is itself a mode of reproduction. Many single-celled organisms are produced by binary fission, and binary fission is the division of the cell into two, where a cell divides into two halves and each rapidly grows into an adult. For example, in case of yeast, the division is unequal and small buds are produced that remain attached initially to the parent cell, which eventually get separated and mature into a new yeast organisms. And these small buds are called the external outgrowths and these external outgrowths after liberation will form a new individual organism. However, the member of kingdom fungi and simple plants such as algae reproduce two special asexual reproductive structures. These included zoospores that usually are microscopic motile structures, and other common asexual reproductive structures are called conidia, bud, and gamules. The second mode of reproduction is sexual reproduction, and it is the most prominent and unique reproduction process which is essential for survival of the living organism. There are also phases of growth of the life cycle of an sexually reproducing organism, and it started from the juvenile phase that includes pre-reproductive phase. It is also known as vegetative phase in case of plants, and then phase of reproduction or reproductive phase where organisms are now able to produce their fertile offsprings, and after maturity it leads to death, which is called senescent phase. Here some examples are written regarding the phases of life cycle of sexually reproducing organism. A few plants exhibit unusual flowering phenomenon. Some of them, such as bamboo species, flower only once in their lifetime, generally after 50 to 100 years, produce large number of fruits and die. Another plant, Strobilenthus kuntiana, flowers once in 12 years. However, during the sexual reproductive stage, placental animals exhibit some cyclic changes during the activities of ovaries and accessory ducts. In non-primate mammals like cows, sheep, rats, deers, etc., such cyclical changes during reproduction are called oestrus cycle. And in case of primates like monkey, ape, and human, it is called menstrual cycle. So in the oestrus cycle is the cycle of seasonal activity of the female or heat period, that only during that period the animal can reproduce. But in case of primates including human, this type of seasonal period is not occur. They can reproduce in all time, and in the female of primates exhibit some cyclical uterine changes, and it is called menstrual cycle. Now, events in sexual reproduction or steps involved in sexual reproduction. All sexually reproducing organisms exhibit events and processes that have remarkable fundamental similarity. So regarding the plants, animals, and all type of living organisms, if they perform sexual reproduction, their basic concept is similar. Only the structural differences occur between different types of sexually reproducing organisms. The events of sexual reproduction is elaborate, complex, and follow a very regular sequence. The process can be divided into three steps, that is pre-fertilization, fertilization, and post-fertilization. Pre-fertilization events include the gametogenesis and gamete transfer. Gametogenesis is the process of formation of the two different types of gametes, that is male and female gametes or sperm and ovum. Gametes are always haploid, they containing the single set of chromosomes. In some algae, the two gametes are so similar in appearance, that is both in structure and size, and that it referred as homogametes or isogametes. However, in a majority of sexually reproducing organisms, the gametes produced are of two morphologically distinct types, and it is called heterogametes. In such organisms, the male gamete is called antherozoid or sperm, and the female gamete is called egg or ovum. So now you can easily tell in case of human what type of gametes are produced, that is heterogametes. Next step of sexual reproduction is gamete transfer. So after the formation of gametes, they have to transfer. So in case of lower organisms, there is a need for a medium through which the male gametes have to be moved. In several simple plants like algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes, water is the medium through which the gamete transfer take place. A large number of the male gametes, however, fail to reach the female gametes, and to compensate this loss of male gametes during the transport, the number of male gametes produced in several thousand times the number of female gametes produced. So here you have to keep in mind that the male gametes are always motile and the female gametes are in stationary state. In case of higher plants, pollination represents the process of gamete transfer. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to stigma, and the pollen grains represents the male gametophytic stage. So after the formation of microspores or pollen grains, they have to be reached in the stigma of the female reproductive part of the flower, and this process of transfer is called pollination. Next step of reproduction is called fertilization, and after reaching the male and female gamete, they now involve the process of fusion. So fertilization represents the fusion of male and female gamete. This process is also called syngamy, result in the formation of a diploid zygote. So male gamete containing single set of chromosome and female gamete containing another single set of chromosome, after the fusion the zygote will be diploid, that containing two sets of chromosomes. Animals are also categorized into oviparous and viviparous animals based on whether the development of the zygote take place outside the body of the female parent or inside, whether they lay fertilized or unfertilized egg or give birth to young ones. In case of oviparous animals like reptiles and birds, the fertilized eggs covered by hard calcareous cell are laid in a safe place in environment. After a period of incubation, young one hatch out. On the other hand, in viviparous animals, the zygote develops into a young one inside the body of the female organism. In case of flowering plants, the zygote is formed inside the ovule, and ovule is present in the ovary part of the gynoecium. So within the gynoecium, ovary contain the ovule, and within the ovule, embryo sac is present where embryo is developed. The ovary after fertilization develops into a fruit which develops a thick wall called pericarp, that is the protective in function. And after the dispersal, the seed germinate under the favorable condition to produce a new plant. So the three phases that occur during the sexual reproduction are the pre-fertilization, fertilization and post-fertilization. So in this chapter you have to learn mainly about the reproduction of organism, and it is sexual and asexual reproduction. Why sexual reproduction is more preferable over the asexual reproduction? What are the differences between sexual and asexual reproduction? What do you mean by lifespan? And finally, the steps and events of the sexual reproduction. Thank you.